Touchdown, buzzer beater, do it all now. All now, top corner talking home run. Touchdown, buzzer beater, do it all now. All now, top corner like ooh.
All right. Hello, everybody. It is Monday, August 18th, 2025, and this is the Monday Report. I'm your host, H. James K., and today we are going to be doing a preview of the Atlantic Coast Conference and Notre Dame because they refused to join a conference like everybody else. Either way, today we're going to go through all 17 ACC teams and Notre Dame. We are going to be ranking them from 17th to 1st. And right off the bat, we're going to start off with Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman has Notre Dame elevated to a place where Brian Kelly just couldn't take them. I think at this point it's pretty obvious and it's easy. We can declare that Freeman's a better coach at Notre Dame than Brian Kelly. Because Brian Kelly, I know he's in the ACC, but LSU just hasn't gotten to the heights that Freeman has gotten at Notre Dame. Either way, Notre Dame's recruiting is doing very well, and the team is looking poised to make another playoff push in 2025. Wins over Texas A&M at home, at Arkansas, USC at home, and at Boston College will headline a successful season for the Fighting Irish. Notre Dame will open the season with a loss at Miami, causing many to prematurely question Notre Dame's playoff chances. A late-season loss to Syracuse will have Notre Dame firmly on bubble watch, but I am predicting that the Notre Dame Fighting Irish will finish the season 10-2 and will be firmly in the conversation for a college football playoff spot. All right, now moving on to the Atlantic Coast Conference. Coming in at number 17, we've got the Stanford Cardinal. Former NFL coach Frank Reich is in a bad situation in Palo Alto, California. The interim head coach was hired by new Stanford football general manager Andrew Luck. Yes, former Colts quarterback Andrew Luck. After the previous head coach, Tory Taylor, was fired for workplace misconduct allegations in either the winter or the spring. It was several months ago, either way. Reich enters a situation where the team has no stable recruiting, no reliable NIL, no serious buy-in from the university, and general fan apathy. I am predicting a rudderless season for Stanford with very few bright spots. The only wins to speak of are a road win over Hawaii to start the season, a home win over G5 lightweight San Jose State, and a win at home against fellow Pac-12 refugee and rival Cal. Losses against every major opponent Stanford plays will range from horrible blowouts to heartbreaking losses. Still, losses at BYU, at home against Boston College, at Virginia, at SMU, home against Florida State, at Miami, home against Pitt, at North Carolina, and home against Notre Dame will have fans checking out on the season before October is even finished. I am predicting that Stanford will finish the season 3-9 and will be looking for a new head coach come 2026. All right, coming in at number 16, we've got the California Golden Bears. Justin Wilcox enters his 9th season with the Golden Bears at a time where Cal is going through a bit of a transition. Former NFL coach Ron Rivera has been brought in to be the team's new general manager. Rivera hopes to improve the team's NIL and recruiting, but that process is in the early going. After back-to-back 6 and 7 seasons with back-to-back bowl losses, Wilcox hopes that new offensive coordinator Brian Harsin, that's former Boise State head coach Brian Harsin, and new co-defensive coordinators Vic So'oto and Terrence Brown will improve things. A road win at former Pac-12 foe Oregon State, a home win over Texas Southern, as well as road wins over San Diego State and Boston College in consecutive weeks will be the totality of Cal's success in 2025. Losses at home against Minnesota, Duke, and North Carolina will have the team at 4-3 through 7 games. Further losses at Virginia Tech, at home against Virginia, at Louisville, and Stanford, and finally at home against SMU will have Justin Wilcox firmly on the hot seat come December. I am predicting that Cal will finish the season 4-8. All right, number 15 in the ACC, you've got the Boston College Eagles. I like Bill O'Brien as head coach. I think he had a great season at BC last year. That being said, the loss of Thomas Castellanos to FSU cannot be understated. He was their starting quarterback last year. Yes, the addition of Dylan Lonergan from Alabama is a serviceable addition to the QB room, and he might be a good starter, but I just don't know about it. Boston College's intended style of play, that being a tough run game and a solid defense, should keep them in most games. That said, I have my doubts about their ability to throw the ball enough to make them serious contenders in 2025. Wins over Fordham, at Stanford, at Pitt, at home against UConn will have the Eagles sitting at 4-3 after 7 games. A road upset of Syracuse will have serious conference implications. BC's losses will begin with losses at Michigan State, at home in a shocking upset against Cal, and at home against a heavily favored Clemson team. Following the victory over UConn, a 4-loss skid at Louisville, and at home against Notre Dame, SMU, and Georgia Tech will leave fans wondering how things slipped away. I am predicting that Boston College will finish this season 5-7. Coming in at number 14, we've got the Virginia Tech Hokies. Brent Pry enters 2025 in a bit of a precarious situation. Fans are beginning to sour of Pry's tenure at Va Tech, and the results they'd liked just haven't come. Entering 2025, Va Tech has a new offensive coordinator in Philip Montgomery. And Philip Montgomery, for those who don't know, was the quarterback's coach and offensive coordinator of the United Football League's Birmingham Stallions in 2024. This is to go along with the team also has new defensive coordinator Sam Sefkes. I think that's how you say his name. Siefkes. So I'm going with Sifkeys or Sifkeys. These changes are hoped to bring more success to the Hokies in 2025. Home wins over Old Dominion, Wofford, Wake Forest, and Cal, as well as a road win over hated rival Virginia, will be the highlights of the season. Losses against South Carolina on a neutral field and Vandy at home to start the season will get things going on the wrong foot. A loss at North Carolina State will have the team at 3-3 at midseason. Further losses at Georgia Tech and at Florida State, as well as home losses against Louisville and Miami, will have the Hokies fans seriously considering a new coach come December. I've never heard anything good about Brent Pry. To be honest with you, I've heard nothing but discontent from Hokies fans when I've interacted with them when talking about their head coach. Either way, I am predicting that the Hokies are going to finish the season 5-7. Moving on to our number 13 team in the Big 12, in the ACC, we've got the Virginia Cavaliers. Tony Elliott is on the hot seat. After a trio of disappointing or outright disastrous seasons with the Cavaliers, I am not super confident in his Virginia squads. This is based largely on past results and the disappointing quality of Tony Elliott's last 3 seasons. Home wins over Coastal Carolina, William Mary, and Stanford will have the Cavaliers at 3-3 at midseason. An overtime win over Washington State and a hard-fought win at Cal will round out the winning for Virginia in 2025. Once again, Virginia's defense will be mediocre, and once again, the Cavaliers will find themselves buried under an avalanche of touchdowns in multiple games. I actually did some research on this. Last season, Virginia's defense was 101st in the nation. They were that bad. Losses at... yes, that's where I was. Sorry about that, folks. I lost my place in my notes. Losses at NC State and at home against Florida State, as well as at Louisville and at North Carolina, will all be blowout losses. Further losses at home against Wake Forest. Then there's an away game at Duke, and at home against rival Virginia Tech will all likely have Virginia looking for a new head coach come December. Tony Elliott, it's one of those where it just isn't working out at Virginia, and I think he's just I don't think he's long for the job, to be honest with you. I am predicting that the Cavaliers will finish the season 5-7. Coming in at number 12 in the ACC, we've got the Pittsburgh Panthers. As a Michigan football fan, I remember Pat Narduzzi, and I remember what his defenses did to my Michigan teams while he was Mark D'Antonio's defensive coordinator. Those would be double A-gap blitzes right into Nard Robinson's face until he crapped his pants and ran home. Over and over and over and over. 4 years. And then he did it a couple of times to Brady Hoke. His Michigan State defenses were nasty. They were called the no-fly zone. At Pitt, Pat Narduzzi has been a really good head coach over the previous 10 seasons. I cannot believe he's been there for 10 seasons, but here we are. I expect Pitt to have a good defense in 2025, but I have concerns about starting QB Eli Holstein. I have concerns about him, not only his talent, but him staying healthy, to be honest with you. Wins over Duquesne, Central Michigan, and Louisville, all at home, will have the team at 4-2 at midseason. A road upset of Florida State, a thrashing of Stanford and Palo Alto, and a home upset of Miami will have Pitt heading to a bowl game in 2025. A loss in Morgantown in the backyard rivalry game against West Virginia will sting. The fact that Pitt will lose to basically every other quality opponent they play in 2025 will have some wondering if it's time to move on from Pat Narduzzi. Those people will be fools, and they should be laughed at accordingly, because Pat Narduzzi is a great coach, and I doubt a team like Pitt would ever be able to find someone as good as Pat Narduzzi. So laugh at those people when those calls invariably start to come. Either way, I am predicting that Pitt will finish the season 6-6. Coming in at number 11, I've got the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. I really like what Brent Key is building at Georgia Tech. The Yellow Jackets were a scrappy, fun team to watch in 2024. Their game against Georgia last season was legendary. That was, God, what was it, like 8 overtime periods? It was an absolutely insane game. It was just back and forth and back and forth, and it was legendary, to be honest with you. This season, quarterback Haynes King will be returning, as will all of the major pieces of the coaching staff. Conference wins at Wake Forest and at home against Va Tech will have the team 4-2 by midseason. Further wins over Boston College on the road and at home against Pitt will have the team going to a bowl game for the 3rd year in a row. And for Yellow Jackets fans, I know they'll be slightly disappointed that they didn't do better, but they should also be happy because it's great to see Georgia Tech back to some level of success in the ACC, because those years after they got away from the triple option, those like 3 years or 4 years or whatever that was brutal stuff to watch. It was like watching a baby learn to walk with his feet tied together. It was ugly. I am predicting that the Yellow Jackets will finish the year 6-6. Coming in at number 10, we've got the North Carolina State Wolfpack. In his 13th season with the Wolfpack, head coach Dave Duran will be looking to rebound from the unexpected down year that 2024 was and return North Carolina State to its more expected level of results year after year. With new offensive coordinator Kurt Roper and new defensive coordinator DJ Elliott, Duran will be hoping for improvements to the Wolfpack's result in 2025. Conference wins against Virginia Tech, at Pitt, and home against Georgia Tech, sitting at 6-3, will have them sitting at 6-3 heading into the final 3-game stretch. I'm expecting CJ Bailey to be up and down as the starting quarterback of the Wolfpack, and I think that will cost them at least one game somewhere along the line. More than the QB, road struggles will be the name of the game for NC State in 2025. Excuse me. Road losses against Wake Forest, Duke, Notre Dame, and Miami will have the Wolfpack largely out of contention for the second spot in the ACC championship game in 2025. Two home losses against Florida State and in-state rival North Carolina to end the year will have pushed their higher goals further out of reach in 2025. I am predicting that they will finish the season 6-6. Coming in at number 9, we've got the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Former Washington State head coach Jake Dickert takes over the Demon Deacons after Dave Clawson resigned last season. Dickert is a good coach in my opinion. The fact that he's brought a number of his players with him from Wazoo to Wake Forest is encouraging to me from a roster building standpoint. I have concerns about his choice of Scotty Hazelton as defensive coordinator, considering how awful Scotty Hazelton's defenses were at Michigan State under Mel Tucker. Still, Jake Dickert is a good coach, and I'm quietly encouraged by the direction he will take the Demon Deacons in 2025. Quarterback Deshaun Purdy and the offense should be pretty good in 2025. John Mateer and the Wazoo offense were pretty damn solid last year under Jake Dickert's leadership. Wins over North Carolina State, at Oregon State, an upset of SMU, and a win at Virginia will be the biggest wins for Wake Forest in 2025. The problem for Wake Forest is going to be the defense under Scotty Hazelton's leadership. I expect shootout losses to Georgia Tech, North Carolina, and at Duke. This is on top of an upset loss at Virginia Tech and a thrashing against Florida State on the road. In the end, 2025 will be viewed will be viewed by many as a good jumping off point for Jake Dickert and the Demon Deacons. I am predicting that they will finish the season 7-5. And I know I could re-record some of those mistakes, but I like to keep those in just because, I want to be real with y'all. I'm not perfect, I make mistakes, so we're just going to push on through it. Coming in at number 8, I've got Miami, and that's the U, not Miami of Ohio. Mario Cristobal is one of the most overrated coaches in the country, in my opinion. Some of his game management decisions last year were astounding, borderline criminal. Like his decision to run a regular offensive play when they could be kneeling the ball, ultimately turning the ball over, giving the ball back to the other team who then went down the field and scored a game-winning touchdown. Or a game-winning score of some kind. Yeah, it was one of those where all you got to do was kneel the ball twice and he wins, and it's just like, nah, I'm going to run a play. Oh, look, they fumbled, and now the game is over and we lose. It was a crime against football. The fact that he couldn't make the playoffs with an explosive offense and Cam motherfucking Ward at QB is a stunning reflection of his inadequacies as a head coach. He had Cam Ward and an offense that was like an air raid. It was just a barrage of touchdowns every week, and they couldn't get to the playoffs. Holy crap, Mario. What the hell are you doing? It doesn't get much more picture perfect than that. But this is Miami. But this is Mario Cristobal we're talking about, and that's not how it went last year. That said, Coach Cristobal and the Hurricanes generally win the games they should win. In 2025, I expect it to be much of the same, if a little less flashy compared to last year now that Georgia transfer Carson Beck is taking over at QB. Take a drink of water real quick. All right. A trio of home wins, including a Week 1 upset of Notre Dame, will have the Hurricanes ranked in the top 15 heading into a game against Florida. Wins at Florida State, at home against Stanford and North Carolina State, and then a road win at Virginia Tech will have the Canes sitting at 7-4 heading into the final game of the season. The problem for the Canes in 2025 is going to once again be defense and game management. I expect at least one late game collapse for a loss against one of SMU, Syracuse, Florida, or Louisville. There will be one drubbing in there as well, as Miami loses all 4 of them and ends the season with a loss to Pitt for a 7-5 record. All right, coming in at number 7 in my ACC predictions, we've got the Florida State Seminoles. Last season was outright disastrous for Florida State, finishing the season 2-10. And oh my gosh, watching that team, you felt bad for the players because they couldn't do anything. They couldn't play defense well, they couldn't run the ball, they couldn't not get penalized, they couldn't throw the ball, they couldn't not turn the ball over, they couldn't kick field goals, they couldn't block field goals, they couldn't do anything. They were It was like you took a group of guys off the street and put them in a football game. It was insane. And Mike Norvell is a good coach. That's the crazy thing about it. This was a team that many expected to be a heavy hitter in the playoffs, and they were awful. In Mike Norvell's fifth season with the Seminoles, nothing went right for FSU, who limped out of the gate for a 1-9 record before finally getting a second win over lowly Charleston Southern. In 2025, Gus Malzahn takes over the offense while Tony White takes over the defense. I like both of these guys as coordinators. Tony White was great as the defensive coordinator of, I think it was Purdue. And Gus Malzahn's been a head coach a whole bunch of times. He had a great offense in, I think it was 2012 with Auburn. So I really like both of those hires for FSU. The games of note in the win column for the Seminoles will be a thrashing of Virginia and Stanford, both on the road, a blowout of Wake Forest at home, and wins over North Carolina State and Florida to close the season on a 2-game road stand. The win over rival Florida will aim to put last season's loss in the rearview mirror for good. An opening game loss to Alabama will get things off to an ugly start, though a 3-game win streak will soothe those worries. Back-to-back losses to Miami and Pitt and a road loss to Clemson will be the sum total of the losing in this incredible comeback season for FSU. I'm predicting they're going to finish 8-4, and people need to realize if FSU finishes the season 8-4, Mike Norvell is a great coach. Give the man a raise because that's an incredible turnaround. When a team goes from 12-0 undefeated regular season to 2-10, if they somehow manage to not fall apart and to regroup and make a really good turnaround for an 8-4 season, that's incredible, and people should be lauding Mike Norvell for that and that team. So if that happens, yeah, that's huge. That's a huge deal. All right, coming in at number 6, we've got the Louisville Cardinals. Jeff Brom is a great coach, maybe the only man who could ever turn Purdue into a contender, which he did a few years ago, considering that Purdue played in the Big Ten championship game against Michigan in 2022. That was a great game. Really cool. Colson Loveland had a lot of good catches. That Purdue team was scrappy as hell. Scared the crap out of us Michigan fans there in the third quarter. Very much in the vein of Jim Harbaugh, the prodigal son who played quarterback has returned to his alma mater to right the ship. In year 2 at Louisville, Brom will be looking to build on last year's successes. The problem is, there's no Tyler Schuff to play quarterback, so I'm not anticipating much in the way of improvement over 2024. Fret not, Cardinals fans. An 8-1 start to the season will have Louisville firmly in the top 5 going into a pivotal game against Clemson. That 8-5 start will include wins over Virginia, at Miami, at home against Boston College, and on the road against Virginia Tech. The 8-1 start will feature a mild speed bump against Pitt, but the good times will keep on rolling after that. The final 3 games of the season are where the fun times are going to end, though, because Clemson won't be playing around and will look to assert dominance over the ACC for good. The following road loss to SMU and a loss to hated rival Kentucky will have the Cardinals coming up short in 2025, finishing the season at 8-4. I really like Jeff Brom. I was both elated that he was leaving and the Big Ten wouldn't have to deal with him anymore, and really sad for Purdue fans because that 2022-2023 seasons, those 2023? No. 2022, 2021, 2022, those seasons at Purdue were just, they were incredible. They were magical, and I was so happy for Purdue fans for finally being good at one point since, like, Drew Brees was their quarterback, like, 25 years ago. It was really good, but alas, he had to go back to his alma mater. It's what he had to do. You know, you can't fault the man for that. You know, it's just like Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State or Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. Sometimes you're just called back to your alma mater to fix things. So 8-4 for Louisville in 2025. Coming in at number 5, I've got the Syracuse Orange. I love what Fran Brown has done at Cuse. Their offense was dynamite last season with Kyle McCord at QB. Let me take a drink real quick. Excuse me. In 2025, Cuse will look to either Steve Angeli or Ricky Collins to lead the offense. At the time of recording, there is no answer as to who is going to be the QB. If I had to guess, I'd expect Steve Angeli to win the job, but that is just my baseless speculation based on vibes and some things I've heard in the past that Angeli might be the guy. Still, we have no real answers. A win over Duke as well as a 5-game win streak against Pitt, at Georgia Tech, North Carolina in an upset, at Miami, and an upset of Notre Dame will have Fran Brown firmly established as a big name in college football coaching. A Week 1 neutral site loss to Tennessee, as well as road losses against Clemson and SMU, will somewhat slow down the hype train for Cuse in 2025. A Week 12 loss against Boston College to close the season will eliminate Cuse from ACC title contention. Excuse me. Man, something in my throat today. I've had this weird cold thing going on today, so I'm kind of struggling through it. Anyway, I am predicting that Syracuse is going to finish the season 8-4, and I really like Fran Brown. I think that team is so freaking fun, and I was so glad that Kyle McCord had a great season with them last year because the way FSU fans treated him was freaking not FSU. Ohio State fans treated him last year was disgusting. They were calling him things like Honda Midcord and Honda McCord, and it was just he didn't deserve that. Yes, he didn't play great, and he played. No, you know what he did? He played good against Michigan in 2023, and Ohio State fans being assholes, they ran his ass out of town anyway. So I was glad to see him throw for 4,000 plus yards and a jillion touchdowns with Syracuse last season. That was great. I'm happy for him, and it got him into the NFL, so kudos to him. Anyway, I like Fran Brown. I like Syracuse. I really like what they're building. Next, coming in at number 4, we've got the Southern Methodist Mustangs. SMU made a ton of noise in 2024 as their boosters decided that they wanted to be good at football again for the first time since 1987. In 2025, I am predicting not quite as much success, but I still like the Mustangs in 2025. In head coach Rhett Lashley's 4th season, the Mustangs will look to punch their ticket to a college football playoff, but obstacles do stand in their way. Kevin Jennings returns as the starting quarterback in 2025, while also on the preseason Manning Quarterback of the Year award watch list. A victory over in-state foe Baylor. Yeah, if those of you didn't know, SMU is in Texas. The win over Baylor will have the Mustangs at 3-0 heading into a non-conference game against TCU on the road. Wins over Syracuse, Stanford, Miami, Louisville, and Cal on the road will have SMU in the conversation all season. The more I've thought about it, the game at TCU is the one game where I'm like the iffiest about it. I have TCU beating SMU, but I'm very 50-50 on it, and I could easily see it going the other way. I think SMU is really good. I think TCU is going to be underrated this year, and that's one of those games where I predicted TCU a couple of weeks ago when I was making those predictions. But it's like as I've thought about it more, I've like, Rhett Lashley's really good. They got Kevin Jennings, and it's just so I'm conflicted about that one, but I'm sticking to that prediction of SMU losing to TCU. Road losses against Clemson and Wake Forest in back-to-back games are going to be a tough pill to swallow for SMU fans. An upset loss against Boston College on the road will leave many wondering how they let things slip away so much when so much was going for them. I have the SMU Mustangs finishing the season 8-4. Coming in at number 3, you've got the North Carolina Tar Heels. All-time great NFL first ballot Hall of Fame head coach Bill Belichick returns to what I'm pretty sure is his alma mater to take over in a move many were shocked to see from the head coach in his 70s. I think he's like 74 years old. Considering the gap in coaching talent from the NFL to college ball, I would not be surprised if Bill Belichick has instant success at the college level. At the very least, I'm expecting huge things from the UNC defense in 2025. I still remember back in 2023, I think it was 2023, when the Lions are riding high and they go play a rudderless, inept New England Patriots team and get absolutely curb stomped, like 31-6 in the snow or whatever. Yeah, that game, I remember that game. That's because, Bill Belichick, great head coach. A 6-1 start to the season will have the Tar Heels dispatching UCF, Clemson, Cal, and Virginia with surprising ease. I'm expecting the Tar Heel defense to be stifling in 2025, so an ugly slugfest win against Clemson wouldn't surprise me at all. Further wins at Wake Forest and at in-state rival NC State to close the season will have the Tar Heels firmly in the conference title race. A Week 1 loss to TCU at home will somewhat dampen the spirits of college football fans everywhere. The 6-game win streak will end at Syracuse when Fran Brown's squad wins a tight duel in the Carrier Dome in New York State. What will ultimately keep UNC from achieving its goals will be a tough loss at home against Duke in the 11th game of the season. Either way, I am predicting that the Tar Heels will finish the season 9-3 in what can only be described as an amazing first season for Bill Belichick. I really like the hire. I think it's going to work out truly. I don't know why, because he's such a kind of a dictator, grumpy old man kind of head coach, but I have a weird feeling that his expertise on defense and his experience with the game is going to really make that team well coached and disciplined. Coming in at number 2 in the ACC, we've got the Duke Blue Devils. Manny Diaz is a great defensive coach, and I really like what his Duke Blue Devils were last year. They finished last year 9-4, with that 4th loss being to Ole Miss in their bowl game. In 2025, I have the Blue Devils contending for the ACC title on the back of an aggressive defense and a quietly efficient offense. Darian Mensah, the transfer QB from Tulane, will likely be the starting quarterback, and I am expecting big things from him. Darian Mensah was really good at Tulane, and I know a lot of Tulane fans were very upset to see him go, but I expect big things out of him at Duke. A Week 3 win over Tulane, Mensah's former school, will be an interesting matchup. Other wins against Georgia Tech and North Carolina on the road will have many looking at the Blue Devils as one of those sneaky playoff teams that you don't expect to be a giant killer, but secretly are. An early season loss to Brett Bielema and Illinois in what I think is going to be an ugly 17-15 kind of game will be a setback, but road losses at Syracuse and Clemson will be a much bigger problem for the Duke Blue Devils. I am predicting that the Blue Devils will finish the season 9-3 and will be going to the ACC title game. And obviously that means that coming in at number 1, you've got the Clemson Tiger. What is there to say about Dabo Swinney? The man has been a staple at Clemson for years. The man basically turned Clemson into a contender when they were a school that nobody considered a heavy hitter in decades past. After a few seasons lost in the QB wilderness following Trevor Lawrence, it appears that Clemson has finally solved those QB woes, and in 2025 they are looking to find more success in this season's playoffs versus last year. A huge win over Brian Kelly and LSU will start the season will have the Tigers in the top 5 very quickly. Further wins over Georgia Tech on the road and Syracuse at home will have people talking about Clemson as a serious contender. A misstep against UNC will be a setback, but a 6-game win streak will ease those concerns down the stretch. The aforementioned setback against UNC, gosh, I keep messing that up, and a road loss to hated rival South Carolina will be the only blemishes on what I anticipate is a team destined for the playoffs in 2025. I am predicting that Clemson is going to finish the season 10-2. some other predictions that I'm going to make right here. I don't believe Frank Reich will make it to the end of the season as Stanford's head coach. I like the guy. He's a good quarterback mind. He's a good offensive mind. He's, created teams that really were like Super Bowl contenders. But I just think it's a weird fit that does not seem permanent at all at the collegiate level. Justin Wilcox will get the boot from Cal for obvious reasons after a 4-1 start turns into a 4-8 season. Mike Norvell will win ACC Coach of the Year for the turnaround at FSU. He might win National Coach of the Year. Who knows? I think, here's one that I think is going to be kind of sad, but I think Dave Duran will hang it up after 13 seasons at NC State as the Wolfpack's head coach. Wolfpacks will hate to see him go. I know I will. I've always loved how scrappy the NC State Wolfpack teams have been, and they got a really cool stadium. But I think after 13 years, with this season being a little bit disappointing, I think he might say, you know what, that's enough. I've had a good career. And lastly, the ACC will only get one team into the playoffs, which won't be a shock to anybody probably. But there will definitely be a debate about it. I think there's going to be conversations about Duke, honestly. That team is going to have a wicked defense, and I think people are going to be like, but what about Duke, man? Yeah, they're 9-3, but, I think those conversations are going to happen. So those are my predictions for the Atlantic Coast Conference and Notre Dame, because Notre Dame is afraid to join a conference and play like the rest of us. Either way, for those of you listening on... Actually, before I do my final spiel, I could talk about the Michigan NCAA punishment and everything. I could. I'm a Michigan fan, and I'm choosing not to talk about it, not because I don't care, because I'm a Michigan fan, I just don't want to talk about it, but because, to be honest with you, there is nothing I can add that hasn't been said over the last 18 months. Everyone has given their 2 cents, and there's nothing I can say that will not have been said by someone else. I will add nothing new to that discussion, so I'm just choosing not to make a video on it. I know that's stupid because it's, a video that would get a lot of attention, but for reasons that are my own, I just don't want to make a video where I'm rehashing other people's opinions. I don't want to do that. That's not my style. I want my opinions to be my own, so I'm not making a video on the Michigan Condor Stallions advanced signal stealing thing, so I'm not talking about that. Either way, for those of you listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or everywhere else that podcasts are available, thank you. Please tell your family and friends. Share the word, send links to everybody so we can keep growing the podcast. For those of you listening on YouTube, whoever you are, if you're out there, the 3 of you that are out there these days, thank you so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, spread the word so we can help the channel grow. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notifications. Do all the things to help the YouTube channel grow. I'd really love to see us get wider attention so we can have more people join and enjoy these podcasts and join the discussions and everything. So please spread the word. All right. Next week, I am going to be doing my SEC preview, and once college football and the NFL season start, I'm going to be doing a weekly, the video is basically going to be review what happened last week, preview what happens next week, focusing really on highlights and news stories about the things like the big games. So I'm not going to go through 25,000 games. You're definitely going to get the Lions and the Michigan score because I'm a Lions and a Michigan fan. Sorry, not sorry. But you'll get the big matchups every week. So I'm going to do an NFL and a college football, one of those, basically every week of those seasons from September 1st through freaking mid-February. It's just going to be it's all I'm doing, basically. Other than a video about the NFL trade deadline. Or if there's anything newsworthy, it's going to be all I'm doing for the next 5 months. So look forward to that. Lots of NFL, lots of college football discussions coming. But next week, we got to talk about the SEC. And then no more talking about previews and predictions. We're just real freaking football. I can't wait. Either way, my name is H. James K. Thank y'all for tuning in Until next time.